final aspect of your logo design is that it has to be instantly recognizable. When people see your logo in other various forms, if you're going to change it for different album covers, people need to know that it's still you.
In terms of being distinct, we need three things. The logo needs to be instantly recognizable. You need to be able to recognize it from a distance. Also, you need to keep in mind that this is the 21st century, so it needs to stand out on the internet and be distinct there. So let's talk about instant recognition. Something like the How to Promote Your Band logo. The only thing that may not be as recognizable from a distance is the How to Promote here, but this lettering is distinct enough that when we show someone just the Your Band aspect of it, if we, for example, were to just mask this out, come up here, the lettering itself is fairly distinct without the logo, and the other way around. If we undo that, Control Invert, the logo in and of itself is also pretty distinct. You know what's going on there. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot of line work, and it's not very intricate. In just a silhouette, you can tell what's going on here. So this is what we want to keep in mind in this entire chapter. So being able to recognize something instantly at a distance, it has to have a distinct shape. If you are really intricate with the work, it's going to take away from the split-second recognition. One really great example of instant recognition is right here. You've all seen this. You can pick it out at a distance. If you have kids, I'm sure they can pick it out from a distance and they immediately want a Happy Meal. One of the most recognizable logos in the world right now is McDonald's. And as you can see, it's very basic. You have this rectangular shape here at the bottom, and the golden arches, of course. Very simple. There's not a lot to it. We don't have burgers and fries and a big smiling guy eating a Big Mac. There's none of that. Red and yellow, colors that make you hungry, as well as colors that convey urgency. So one of the most well-designed logos in the 20th century. So with that in mind, how can we make a couple of our band logos a little bit more recognizable? Let's jump down here to one of my favorite logos that I built, and that's Chow. We have a very iconic image here. Guy with a gun. Everything's pretty basic in terms of there's only two colors. You've got black and white. You know what's going on. He looks a little bit angry. Aiming the gun just about right at you. Probably looks like the guy next to you. He's going to blow away. How can we make this more recognizable from a distance? Because you can see here as we get further and further away, I'm not really sure what that is. That could be a bird. Could be a guy flying. You know, who knows what that is? You got wings here maybe. I don't even know. Now, of course, as we get closer, sure, it becomes visible. But what if we did this instead? And we just grab the image of the gun. Now as we get further and further away, pretty much you can still tell that that's a gun. And if we one-up that a little bit and get rid of, let's see here. If we one-up that and get rid of the interior, now you really know that's a gun. You can easily see the trigger guard here. Everybody knows here's the handle, here's the barrel. Very distinctly recognizable as a gun from a distance. And that's a way better logo. In the same vein, let's jump down to the aggressive bands, the more metal-y kind of bands. One of the cool things that a lot of metal bands do is they have one very simple symbol. And quick shout out to meztone.deviantart.com. We checked out his website in the last episode. Check him out. He does some fantastic, really well-designed logos that you can easily read. It's obvious this says your band. So, what if we were to add this? There's a band called Trivium, which I love. And they have two symbols. They have this one up top here. But one of the great things that they've also done, in the lettering of their name, they've got another symbol built in. And that's this letter T here. They've done such a good job making their logo iconic that if we add a new layer here and fill in Trivium, now they have two symbols. And this one, I would say, is almost better because, I mean, who really knows what this is? You may know what this is if you're a Trivium fan. Most people not going to recognize it. Like if you're a passing fan, probably not going to know what this is. If you've heard a couple songs, you know, who knows? But at the same time, if you see this giant letter T here, obviously that's the first letter of their name, and it's a pretty cool looking version of that letter. This is a great icon, and they've begun using this in conjunction with the other one. I have a shirt at home, for example. that pulls this T. Oops, hang on just a second. Pulls this letter T up over here underneath the other symbol to combine them. So that's a great idea. Very iconic. Again, you can see it at a distance. We drop this down, so now you're, yards and yards and yards away, a couple miles. Probably not that far. But you can still see it's a letter T. You can still make out what it is. You can even see the little teeth here if you zoom in a little bit further. So, same thing with our aggressive logo here. We shut off Trivium. Even without your band, it's evident that that's a letter Y. But in addition, it's an interesting enough letter Y where that's going to stick in your head. When you see this again, the first thought is going to be either, man, that's the symbol for your band, or where have I seen that letter Y before? And then your brain's going to start working, and then it'll eventually put it together that, oh yeah, I saw that band one time and they had this, great song, or they were terrible, or whatever. Again, like I said before, the music is up to you guys, but I can help you with the art. So, keep this in mind. It's really good if the symbol that you're using, if you have a symbol, can be placed right into the name of your band. On that same note, let's talk a couple of bands that are distinctive, but they don't have a logo. They just use their name as their logo. So let's check this out. Here are a couple that fairly obvious. Kiss, probably the most famous here. A little bit less famous, Metallica way on the top there. But let's concentrate on Kiss. Again, this logo follows all the rules that we've set out before. The jagged edges of the S's reflect that this band is going to be a little more aggressive. They're kind of in the hard rock, heavier genre, so it fits in with that. Also fits in with their attitude. A lot of times you're going to see these letters on fire, which reflects their stage show. You can instantly recognize this font style when you see it. You know, for instance, that when you see this logo, you're talking about the band Kiss, and not necessarily the short film of the same name. Even if we zoom out, you can still tell that it's Kiss. Even with Metallica, if you check out Metallica up there, you may not even be able to recognize the words or what it says as we zoom out, but you can definitely recognize the shape of it. Alright, let's talk about what if you're not in a hard, aggressive band. I showed you Enya and Depeche Mode here. Both of them not known for their heavy, aggressive styles, but they both still have their own distinct image. So let's move on real quick to a more introspective band like Enya or Depeche Mode. Metal bands and industrial and hard rock and a lot of the more hardcore rap bands all tend to sing about outside influences and the effect that these influences have on the people singing. That's why I chose the word introspective to sort of separate the metal-y bands from the softer, more melodic, more flowing bands, because these bands are more concerned with the self. They're more concerned with how am I reacting to these things rather than how are these things, in many cases, oppressing me or reacting to me. With that in mind, something like handwriting, you don't get more introspective or intimate with your own thoughts than in your handwriting. So that's why a lot of these bands, and we'll go back here real quick to the word logos, Depeche Mode, handwritten. Enya, handwriting. Immediately when you look at this, you have a sense for the feeling that that person had when they were writing it. Same thing with Depeche Mode. This handwriting style gives you some insight into the performer. I've chosen a fixed created font for the Your Band in this particular instance. However, the one that I chose, there are a lot of round edges. If you notice, even the jagged edges here, the points at the ends of the N and the A, still rounded off, not as hard. Before we move on here, I'd just like to give another shout out to Mixes90 at deviantart.com. DeviantArt, fantastic resource. Go there, check out some of Mix's stuff. It's this plastic font is the one I've chosen. Great resources here, and for the most part, people don't mind if you use their imagery or you use their fonts as long as you credit them. This is their work you're using. It's not your own original work. So, back to Your Band. I'm just going to do something real quick. There are a couple of different things that you can do here to give a couple, if you don't have any one standout letter like the Y from the aggressive logo that we looked at, then let's move Your Band, or how to promote out of the way here. Let's take, oops. Let's take Your Band, get rid of the letters, and then duplicate that. I'm holding down Alt, and I'm using the Move tool here to duplicate. All right, so there are a lot of different things we can do here. We can combine letters, and you've seen this in many cases, I'm sure. And we can combine them in a couple of different ways to make a more interesting, iconic logo. So there we have a little YB that are stuck together. And if you zoom out, we've got something distinctive there. Not really sure what it is. You can't really tell that it's a YB. If you're a fan of the band, you can tell. But again, something like this, in and of itself, this is interesting. So now if we come down here and grab how to promote your band, drop that below, even something like this is more distinct and more interesting. And literally all we've done is stuck two letters together. The most important thing here is make sure that you experiment with your fonts. If you just have these two letters, there are all sorts of different things that you can do with them if you find a font that you like. We can stick them together like this. All sorts of things that you can do. Just have fun with it, go crazy. Again, if you're using someone else's font, get their permission to use it as your band logo, because this is not your font. You didn't do this work. Another thing you can do with someone else's font is play around with it like we've played around with the YB here. And I actually kind of like this one better. Well, maybe we can... Anyway, play around with it. There's a lot of great, just moving this around simply. There's a lot of great things we can achieve with it. But anyway, sorry. When you're using someone else's font, come up with something, and let's say we like that, and that's interesting. Now, instead of using their font, either find an artist friend who you trust, or play around with it yourself, because initially, sure, we can't use their font, but if I just grab my Wacom tablet here, check this out. There's nothing that says we can't use that layout and build our own font. Furthermore, down the line, maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you want to change the font up, because look, these two, basically the same thing. We can even thicken this up a little bit here. Make it a little more... Now it kind of looks like I'm saying yo. Anyway, whatever. The point is, if you were to draw this on a later album, even if that first one is your logo, your fans are still going to recognize this one. That's the sign of a good logo. You can change it, but it still looks the same. One last note, never use installed fonts. The fonts that come with Photoshop, everybody and their grandmother who's a terrible artist and can't think of anything on their own, use these fonts. So don't use the ones that come pre-installed. Either look for them or create them or find somebody else who can create them. Because something like Helvetica, well, Helvetica is not too bad. You can use Helvetica because it's very simple. It's just a basic sans serif font. But for instance, as you start using these fonts, you're going to see over and over and over examples of where people have used these. And in many cases, they're horrible. All of these fonts have been used on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of logos. And the end result is that yours is not going to stand out. So anyway, that's all for now. Please remember to comment.
Hey everyone, one quick note before you go. This video that you just watched is part of a larger course on how to promote your band. So if you liked what you saw, or if you're just ready for the next step, then click the link right here in the description, and that will take you to the course page overview where you'll see every lesson in the series, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to watch. Please remember to comment, rate, and subscribe below, and if you have any questions, send them to requests@mahalo.com. Thanks for watching. The next thing that's going to make your logo great is a monster.